All right, so that is what we're focusing on next. Some of those matters that were raised at the ongoing alteration of the 1999 Constitution. Well, two gentlemen joining us this morning, U.M. Nwoko, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Attorney General of Akwa Ibom State and Commissioner for Justice, as well as Mondo Bani, who is the former second Vice President of the Nigerian Bar Association, just joining us to weigh in on this matter. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, we have heard, some of those items, we don't know which of them you caught, but the question of referendum raises, quite some interest. It has, and who knows, it always will, depending on what we do about it. Let me get both of you's opening comments on that particular perspective. What do you think of what was said about what we need to do about referendum conferring some sort of legitimacy on the Constitution? Mr. Nwoko, can we start with you? Okay, Mr. Bani, go ahead then, since we'll get Mr. Nwoko in a little later.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope I'm being here.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, the issue is this. Somebody was making a suggestion as the issue of referendum. The proper thing, which we have always known with the issue of constitutional making, is that the people's participation is very important. It's not ordinary enactment. This is clearly the foundation of every other law in the country, and that's why it involves the participation of the people. It is usually in a particular arrangement where the people participate formally that you make a constitution. People have been complaining that the present 1999 constitution was not made by the people, even though you use the word we. It's actually the military that gave us this constitution. And so we have embarked on this patch method over the years. We have the first alteration, second alteration, third, even up to the fourth alteration. And people are still saying, look, this constitution does not reflect the will and wishes of the people, that we need to have a constitution that is made by the people. And I'm sure that's why the learned senior advocate, Mr. Adesina, was making that suggestion. Look, even if we engage in this patch method, which has been the process over the years, that we still require the people's giving it a stamping by that referendum, that will now make it to be owned by the people. That the constitution cannot be made just by members of the National Assembly just like that. There must be that presence of the people in constitutional making. And that's why he was making a reference to referendum. It's not normal, quite all right, the process we're undergoing, since the government doesn't want to actually start a new process of making a constitution for the people. That's why this suggestion is being made. But somebody will say, half bread is better than chin-chin. Maybe that's why that suggestion is being made. But I know that the process of constitution making involved the people, and not through what we are doing presently by this process of amendment. Most times, the political elites will not even allow some of the fundamental alteration that we desire. Remember, there was a time the people, suggested for local government autonomy, issue of independent candidacy and all that. And at the end, we didn't see it manifest in the alteration of the constitution that we all desire. So that has been the problem. The will of the people has never shown presence in this 1999 constitution, and that's why people are making all manner of suggestions. Can we get the people's input into this constitution for it to stand and receive the approval of the people? That's why he was talking about referendum. Ordinarily, it's a new set of constitution that should have actually been as our priority.
Well, that raises a lot of questions, Mr. Obani, because perhaps a number of challenges come up right there. First of all, do we even have any way of engaging the people credibly in a way that the people will trust the process? This is not the first time we're riding this rodeo, and a number of people would be like, okay, let's give this also a chance, let's give this also a chance, and then we just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Do you think people are educated well enough about the functions of the people that represent them at the different places of representation in the National Assembly, in the Senate, and the rest of them?
This is not the first time we have engaged in this constitutional amendment that even involve going to the constituencies and zonal level to get the input of the people. You remember that under the administration of President Jonathan, there was this wholesome process of allowing town hall meetings where people made an input as to what manner of constitution that they should use to operate in the country. And many suggestions were made. But along the line, those amendments were presented for President Jonathan for assent. He found it very repulsive and then had to veto that particular bill. Now, when the National Assembly wanted to override his veto, he rushed to the Supreme Court, and I think the Supreme Court granted an order to maintain status quo. And that was towards the end of his administration, and that's how that wholesome amendment that's supposed to have seen the light of the day was not, was not seen. So we have started the process again, and I say that look, the people's input into this constitutional amendment is very critical. Remember the thing that transpired in Lagos, where a particular woman was allegedly called a thug because she wanted to have her way. She wanted to enter into the place, into the place where they're having the process, and then make her own contribution. But meanwhile, the people they were allowing in are still the same political elites that have kept us where we are. They have retarded the progress of this country. They will not allow a wholesome amendment process that will be a true reflection of the will of the people. If you see what is going on all over the Federation, it is the same political class that are making suggestions as to the amendment. Meanwhile, we have been saying the people's input is critical. So it is only the political class that are allowing it. And as long as that process does not involve the people, do not allow a wholesome amendment, it will still be rejected. I hope this time around that most of the things that people are looking into for amendment in the Constitution will be taken into consideration. I'm talking about the issue of local government administration. We have not been able to have good governance in this country because we have not gotten it right the way the administration of the local government is being organized. We are also talking about physical federalism, where the states should be in a position, to be devolved power onto, in order to control some of the things that the federal government is presently controlling, because we are running over a centralized system and it's not allowing for efficiency. Can we allow a proper devolution of power? Can we allow the state policing, which every other person has, and because we are suffering this state of insecurity because of the fact that there are lapses in our security architecture? Can we allow the people's will to prevail this time around? There are so many issues, my brother. The issue of independent candidacy, the electoral reforms you talk about. Now, so many other issues that people are trying to say, okay, since you don't want us to have a wholesome, a new constitution. If
I could just jump in on that, what would you consider as proper devolution of power?
Now, if you look at 1963 Constitution, which many persons have actually alluded to in their discussion, we find that that's the Constitution that actually reflects a true federal system of governance, where the states control the income, control the revenue that are generated from their various federating units, and then they were paying tax to the at the federal level. Even the judiciary system at that point in time had a court of appeal, which was the last court of at the regional level. The Supreme Court cases, that come from the regional level were few, unlike what is presently playing out, where even a simple matter of marriage at the local level can get to the Supreme Court, and the system is clogged. We need to, do all that of amendment. Follow the 1963 Constitution that was clearly a true reflection of a federal system of governance, and run a country that is clearly efficient. The military interrupted that system, and up to now, we have not gone back to that system that allow a true reflection of a federal, country that is heterogeneous. A country that is heterogeneous cannot be run in a unitary manner. We are running a military system of governance over a country that is heterogeneous, that have, various, differences that should have been taken care of, where a proper federal system of governance is there. So what we're saying about proper devolution of power, there are so many things that the federal government clog themselves with. Issue of policing, I've said it earlier, issue of power. Why can't states actually generate enough energy for themselves? They will know their energy need. Oh, we need maybe 5,000 megawatts or whatever, and generate it, transmit it, and distribute it. Why must we wait for the federal government to be the one to probably transmit and distribute to us? Doesn't know our energy needs at the state level. So I think that most of these things that the federal government is presently handling, I think that the state can efficiently handle, and then bring in the competitive spirit that helped us to be one of the best growing nation in 1960s. If you remember that in 1960, We were rated alongside other nations.
Just give us a moment, Mr. Bani. Don't worry, you'll continue your train of thought when we return in just a moment. Do stay with us.
One of the issues that's been contentious, and forgive me, I seem to be championing the cause of the youth recently. You heard the comments of the Sultan of Sokoto as well as the Oni of Ife saying that the youth were not invited to certain critical meetings at the beginning of the constitution review processes, you know, of the two tiers of the two chambers of the National Assembly. Engaging the youth, the young population who form a significant number of people in the country, is definitely something of concern, because if we do not engage them at this level, how then are we going to expect them to do any better than those who did in the past? So in terms of engaging the youth in this constitution review process, or even in the making of a constitution for us in the country, what is missing?
Well, it's a very critical observation by those personalities you mentioned. The future belongs to the youth, and I think that any involvement of any person...
Mr. Ubani, are you sure the youth can wait for the future? They want it now.
Yeah. What we mean by that is that they are the owner of the country at any point in time. You've mentioned the issue of population. Almost 60% of the population, come from that angle. And then you are planning a critical, aspect of our national life, the issue of constitutional amendment, and then the youth, they are not given any specific role to play, or even given an opportunity for them to come and make their presentation. I think that there is something fundamentally flawed with this process of constitutional amendment. I don't even know the specific instruction they have given as to who and who will be allowed into that particular process in order to make. Look at Lagos. The area they used was very small, couldn't accept more than other 300 persons and all that. And many persons were lined up on the street in order to have access to where they can make their suggestions, but they're all shut out. So the youth belongs, well, it's not the future now, they belong to the country now, and should be allowed to participate in decision making, especially in a fundamental process like constitutional amendment. The youth must have their input because the country belongs to them. With the percentage of the youth in this country, you cannot in any way overlook them. Look at what happened in NSAS, where the youth demanded some particular reforms and held the country hostage. That is the kind of spirit that can bring the reforms we all need in this country. The youth must be given an opportunity to play a significant role, even now, and not issue of future. They always refer them as.
Well, you know, Mr. Ubani, that the language of the youth is a little technical, if I can use the term. So perhaps the challenge then would be the process. How do we begin the engagement of the youth if we want them to lead the nation the way we expect them to?
Now, the first amendment, I think there was this amendment where the issue of the number of years for you to participate in the political process was reduced. Even though somebody will say, look, it has muted. It didn't go much in terms of allowing the process of the youth coming into governance. We should consciously make a provision for the participation of the youth all over, in all our national life. If you look at what is playing out in Europe and some of these American continent, you apart from America, you see that most of the people emerging as the prime minister or president of those countries are the younger ones. They are the one controlling the military. They are the one controlling the key industries in Europe. And back here in Africa, you have people who are 90, 80, trying to contest for governorship and trying to contest for presidency, putting away the youth. If you look at even the appointment of our current president, most of the people we have appointed into governance are not young ones. They are all in the age bracket of 60, 70, or even 80. And that doesn't make for the inclusion of the youth. And that's why the youth are clearly frustrated. What is playing out in spite of insecurity is that the youth are clearly frustrated. They are not included in the process. There is the rate of unemployment, the rate of economic poverty, the rate of the fact that you have nothing doing after graduating from university, secondary school is frustrating enough that most times they find their energy being used in a negative way. So we must try to engage the youth. We must engage them politically, we must engage them economically, we must engage them socially, and we must engage them in all aspects of our national life to make them to feel free to participate in a country where they have a future, where they have, a prospect. If you remove them, you are creating a problem, and that's why we are where we are today.
Well, there's also that issue you referenced the other time. Hopefully we'll be able to speak with the Attorney General shortly. But the issue you referenced earlier about the 1963 Constitution, the Ondo State Governor has also referenced it, and a number of people have mentioned the same thing. Perhaps there are elements in that Constitution that many people do not really understand. What are the implications on the kind of system of government that we run now? Then it was a parliamentary system of government. Now we're on a presidential system of government. How significant do you think that will be in the way Nigeria is run now, and how progressive will it make the nation?
There are certain things take out from that 1963 Constitution, one of which is this issue of proper devolution of power to the federating units. The present government is over-centralized, and that accounts for inefficiency. We cannot allow the federal government to be in charge of the entire policing of the country. We cannot allow the federal government to be in charge of the energy sector completely, determining the energy needs of the various states of the federation. That, again, is not healthy. Now, there are so many issues, we are using today that has not actually helped us as a nation. Over-centralized bureaucracy has not helped the efficient running of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we are saying, can we remove most of the things that the federal government is carrying in the exclusive list and allow the states to come into them, and then create what we call competitive spirit, which was actually the gain of 1963. That was competition. Most of the development we have in all the regions happened during that time. All the universities we have that were, created in the regions, talking about the University of Nigeria and Nsukka, talking about ABU, even University of Ife, that eventually became Obafemi Awolowo University. All these things happened. The radio station, the television in the West was within that region, where the states were controlling the regions were controlling their resources and paying tax to at the federal level. There was so much competition. And to the extent that the eastern region, the economy was regarded as the fastest growing economy. If you remember that this man, Opara, was then the premier, and most of the things that he did in the eastern region are still there for us to observe. Over Calabar, over Port Harcourt, over the present eastern region, making progress, building industries, there was development all over, because of the fact that you were allowed to control your resources and pay certain percentage at the federal level. The judiciary, as I mentioned also, was in that mood. They allow level of judiciary to stop at a certain level. Then Supreme Court is only few cases that go to Supreme Court from the various regions. And all. Why can't we go back to it? So even with the present reality, we can still take some of the progressive things that happened in 1963 Constitution and implant them in the 1999 Constitution and change some of the narratives, which has this unitary system of governance that has not helped efficiency level at the federal level. And then we have a country that all of us shall be proud of. Presently, the structure is faulty. Secondly, the people that run the system is also faulty. I have identified two factors we need to change about Nigeria. One is the present structure. And then secondly is the recruitment process of those in leadership. We have not gotten it right with leadership. We have not gotten it right with the system. When we get these two things right, Nigeria will be flying and not even running. Nigeria will be flying. Let's try as much as possible to address these two fundamental issues and see where we'll be as a nation. Very critical, very important for us as a nation.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. Owenwoko, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Akwa Ibom State. Give us, different states just coming through with their own recommendations. Well, you were equally at the center that hosted your state and made some recommendations. What do you think are the most important things that should be itemized as we progress with this alteration?
Thank you very much for having me, Chamberlain. And let me start by correcting the impression. I left office on the 4th of January this year. The Office of Attorney General, there's a new Attorney General now in Akwa Ibom State, in the person of Ukodom SN. So I am no more the Attorney General. I served for 6 years and left. But I have been part of the process. I was at Port Harcourt for the Senate public hearing. And I was also at Uyo in the 2 days I held the day before yesterday and yesterday. And the issues are the same as ably outlined by Monday, my learned friend there, who has been in the process over the years. We have been over this and over again. We talk about the overburdened exclusive legislative list, the need for devolution of power, the need for true federalism, the need for true federal fiscal federalism, the need for independence of the various arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, the need for the local government system to be empowered to do more, to have more capacity to address the people's needs, the need for youth participation and all that. They are the same line of issues that have been discussed and interrogated over and over again. I think that the problem is the willingness of Nigerians to do the very least they would want to do to ensure that what we put down on paper as laws, what we put down on paper as the constitution, what we put down on paper as legislations, either the acts or laws in the state or the federal level, are implemented. We have problem of implementation of what we have. In a normal situation, I can tell you that even the bad constitution as bad as it is now, the results of governance will not have been as bad as it is if people who are put in the position of responsibility to implement and activate these laws were doing the very least they could, even working in line with the provisions of the constitution and the acts. But we have a situation where people are deliberately evading, avoiding, consciously working against the provisions of each of the pieces of legislation that we have, including the constitution. And as we are now, we will not make any serious progress until we change our attitude towards the pieces of law that we have in this country.
Well, Mr. Woko, fantastic point that you just made there, a problem of implementation. A number of people have queried that as well. Can you give us a specific example in the area of one of the issues that you also mentioned, which is local government, functional local government, that's also been alluded here and there. In terms of implementation of this current constitution, warped, you say, as it is, in what ways have we not done the needful?
Well, let's take the local government as an example. The ways we have not done the needful is that the funds allocated to the local governments have not in all situations been properly channeled to the execution of local government projects. And again, let me say, because like, for instance, I have been in government for the past 6 years. Part of this problem we have is that somebody sits down in Abuja and allocates monies to local government without understanding the deep problems of the state structure where the local government come from. Let me take a Bible state, for example. You now sit down and say, okay, Eket, Ibuno, maybe Mbo, and some of the oil-producing local governments. They are the host communities to the oil companies. They are the oil-producing local governments. So they have more allocation going to them. But also come to look at it. You have local government, you have the primary school teachers' salaries. You have the primary health sector managed by local governments. I tell you that you come to Akwa Ibom State, for example, most of the politicians, most of the people who are here and there who are well-to-do have their wives in the teaching sector. Some of them have their wives in the primary health sector. And most of them want their wives to work in Uyo, want their wives to work maybe in Eket or some of the major urban local governments. And at the end of the month, the allocation that comes to Uyo is so small that it cannot meet the primary school teacher salaries in Uyo alone. So, but you go to Ibuno, which is an oil-producing local government. You go to Eket, which is an oil-producing local government. They have a higher allocation, but lower wage bill. And so if you just want to, I want us to be very honest with ourselves. We are all talking about that local government should be given financial autonomy. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's be practical about it. If you pick the allocation that is given to the local government to go and use it by themselves, a local government that has a very low wage bill has a high income at the end of the month. The local government that has a higher wage bill has a smaller income at the end of the month. You have crisis before you open your eyes. there is no way you will avoid crisis.
All
so
right.
that is the more reason. Section 7 of the Constitution says that the operation, the activities, the existence of the local government should be managed and by a law created by a law enacted by the House of Assembly. And it is when the House of Assembly enacts a law, taking into consideration the problems, the local problems that they understand, that we should be able to have a clear system where there will be no conflict and crisis. If we sit down in Abuja and allocate monies and let them go to the states, and at the end of the day, you have crisis in 10 local governments or 20 local governments, and 5 local governments are having peace out of 31, then you don't have a government that is stable in the whole state. So that is one of the areas why we need to have a proper 2-tier system of government and not a 3-tier system. What we are having today is a 3-tier system, but without allowing the 2-tier to understand themselves, so that each state will be able to manage its local conditions and problems properly. I am being very practical because I have been in the system. Without that, we will not be able to move forward as we expect.
So many, the challenge now is, when having been there, you think a 2-tier system will work. But many think that a 3-tier may be more like it, because if you have a 2-tier system, for instance, tell us, how then will the local, how do you get across to the local? So what happens to the functions of the local government, which some is supposed to be that you get across to the very grassroots of the people?
Listen, when I say 2-tier at the federal level as provided for the Constitution, whereas the local government system will still remain, but managed by the laws enacted by the State House of Assembly. So it's not like we'll have a 2-tier only. No, 2-tier in the Constitution. The 3rd tier should be under the 2nd tier, which is the state government. So it's not going to wipe out it's not going to delete or take off the functions of the local government. The functions of the local government will still remain. Allocation to the local government will still remain. But each state who understand the dynamics, the little problems that are involved in the local government, in their localities, will be able to run, the state government will be able to relate properly with the local governments and get to the bottom of it. So the interest of the local people, the interest of the masses who live more within the local communities will not in any way be jeopardized. I am not saying 2-tier, no, we close it. No, 3-tier, but at the constitutional level, let the federal government deal with 2-tier, or let the constitution deal with 2-tier. Whereas the 3rd tier of government, as presently constituted under Section 7 of the Constitution, will come under the management and directive of the state government. Because this is difficult for the structures in Abuja to understand the problems in each village in the local communities. That is the problem you have when it comes to security. You have that problem when it comes to health. Have that problem when it comes to even management. You go to other places. Why do they have small counties? Why do they have small territories? For instance, there should be local security. That local security should be managed by the local government. There should be primary health sector. It should be managed by the local government. But for the purpose of understanding the dynamics and the problems of each local government, the state is in a better position to know how to apportion its resources to run them.
Mr. Woho, there are those who also wonder how that will work in the light of how some governors in the country have gone around and about. You talked about how we have not lived by the tenets of the Constitution up until now, warped as it is, as you said earlier. So what's the assurance we have now that a 2-tier government, according to the Constitution, will still be able to drill down development to the people as and when they should? Given that the way it is now, some governors, some say, are not even living by the tenets of the Constitution. There are many states right now who don't have local government administrations in place, for instance.
Thank you very much. Let me begin let me come from this angle. What is the degree? What is the percentage of confidence we have in the entire system? It is below 10%. The Nigerian people have virtually lost confidence in the entire governance structure. The reason is that what is expected, people go in and vote, and at the end of the day, nothing happens. This process of constitutional amendment that we're talking about, if I have just a minute or so to say it, I was in Port Harcourt and I was totally disappointed in what I saw. What did I see? An empty hall. In fact, the people that were in Port Harcourt, people who came there, we went from Akwa Ibom to Port Harcourt. The people I saw in that environment are people who didn't have what to do. Boys and girls who had nothing to occupy them that went to that venue. It was an empty venue. We came to Uyo. In fact, the attendance was far better in Uyo day for yesterday and yesterday that we saw. The point is that there is trust deficit in the system. People don't believe that whatever they do today will yield any results. And why wouldn't they think so? The present government at the federal level said they were coming in, that immediately they're coming, they are going to work on power devolution and through federalism. They came in and set up a structure, set up a committee. The committee produced a result. 4 or 5 years after, nothing has happened. They are starting this process again. People now believe that this is a pre-2023 drama, that they just want to use this and deceive the people and say so that they can win election in 2023. And at the end of the day, they will abandon the process again. And why would the people have confidence in the system? From the president to the governor to the National Assembly member to all the commissioners to the ministers, which I happen to be a commissioner for a period of time, the people don't have confidence in us. So there is a major issue. And it is not whether the governors will agree or not. What we need to get right is a proper electoral system that can let the people reject bad leaders when they don't meet up to their expectations. If we have an electoral system that will guide the election, we are talking about youth participation. How many youths will have the billions of naira to come and contest the presidency? How many youths will have the billions of naira to come and run the governorship? So if the electoral process is not properly reached and meant to build a system that the votes will count and what people who vote will come up, then at the end of the day, we may just be creating another piece of drama.
All right, Mr. Bani, 30 seconds. Let's get your concluding thought, please.
I want you to arrange for me and my friend, Mr. Woko, a former Attorney General, is a good friend of mine, for us to actually debate on the issue of proper autonomy of the local government, because I know there was a time local government operated and we had development in the various local government. Then secondly, we have zeroed in on the two things that are missing in this country: proper people that will run the system and the proper system. Those two things are key. Let us get the proper people that will run the system and let us have a proper system in place. We'll have a country that will be flying and not crawling.
All right, gentlemen, Mr. Mondo Bani, former second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, and Mr. Owen Woko, senior advocate of Nigeria and former commissioner for justice and attorney general of Akwa Ibom, said, thank you both for your time today.